bloody hell, what is this? Are you guys with the tavern keeper? Is that what's going on here? Hello?
Hey guys, I found a 4-leaf clover. Today's my lucky day. And oh, we seem to have a leprechaun.
Oh, mercy, what on... A what?
A leprechaun. They're the lucky folk. They usually carry a lot of magic items and gold and usually have red beards like you have.
Alright, I haven't heard of a leprechaun before, but sure. Hi, is this... Are we back at the tavern, or... This seems different, but,
Oh, we're in the realm of dreams. I'm surprised they didn't tell you that already.
no. Everything's good, though? Like...
Yes, we do interviews here. We're going to ask you some questions about things that you have done in your life.
Yes. Welcome to the Delegation of Dreamers.
Hang on, I'm still a little starstruck. You literally appeared out of nowhere.
I mean, yes, that is what happened. You're saying you didn't do that? That wasn't you?
Can't say that was on purpose of anything that I did.
I think this 4-leaf clover is magical.
Oh, grand, most things in this realm are magical.
Well, I plucked it and came in the door, and there's somebody just appeared in our cave.
Well, I feel oddly comfortable speaking with you. I'm not sure why that would be, but I guess ask away.
Yeah, would you like to tell us your name?
Yeah, of course. Jasper Runewood, pleasure. Yeah, I'm from Copenhagen. Who might you folks be?
I am
I'm
Maru.
I'm Ivory.
Pleasure.
I like talking at the same time as other people do.
It's a thing that we both do. We both seem to talk at the same time often. Sure, are you not going to introduce yourself?
I am. I figured I would let you introduce yourself as well without someone talking over you.
Ah, yes, I am Rue. And as for your question as to what I am a Cephalotus Fey, a plant-based fey creature that was grown in a tentacle monster.
Wow.
And I am Ashra. I brought one of these two here. The other one kind of just, I think he got bored one day.
I was bored of what was happening in my world, so I came here.
All right. So you're a Cephalotus Fey?
Cephalotus
Fey, and then two dragons.
See, Rue, we're not the only ones that have issues pronouncing that.
Sorry, that was a lot.
It's the name of a plant, specifically the plant whose seed was used to grow my kind. I thought it was a common plant, but I guess it's not.
I'm a fan of plants, so nice to meet you, Rue. And so far, all my interactions with dragons have been more or less pleasant. So,
Have you met dragons before?
several, surprisingly. It was definitely not on my list of personages to become acquainted with when I started out. But yeah, over the last few months, several actually.
Do you know their names? We might know them.
Oh, yeah, sure. Balcrazadon is the guardian of Falkstad, the dwarvish capital. Emu and her granddaughter Shidhalas over at the elvish capital of Ice Blossom. Last one just recently, just the other day, was Beveroff. She's the sea warden, sort of just cruising the islands out there, the Ivory Islands.
Ah, she's still around.
You're familiar with Beveroff?
I've been to places that have her. She seems to be specifically to your region, but I've visited before.
Yes, well, she's quite lovely. Loves a good fight, and is a good person to have in a fight with you. So
That old bag's still kicking, eh?
quite hard. Watch your shins.
Well, Crassadon is my cousin-in-law, by the way.
No way. He's a quite stern fella, isn't he? Yeah, I suppose that's why the dwarves are so cozy up in the mountains there, knowing he's got their back, right?
Yeah, and also it's a small multiverse.
A what now?
Oh, nothing. That's just what we call it.
All right. Do your cats have names? Shura, was it?
Yes, the black one here is named Zaya, while the gray one here is named Izzy. This realm, many dreams, but also forgotten items appear here, forgotten souls.
Really?
And I picked these two up. They seem to have been forgotten in their realm, but they won't be here.
Well, that's quite lovely.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You seem to have a connection to, I believe it's named the Tree Father.
Yes, quite right. Been follower of the Tree Father for some time. More recently, he started to actually extend sort of a more present sort of blessing in my life. So he's granted me some sort of ability to harden my skin, kind of like bark, give it a little durability for a time. And just recently, actually, if here, we'll see how it works here. I'm not sure if it would work, but this is called the Bounty of the Tree Father. Well, there you go. A nice little cornucopia of fresh fruit, and that juice in the middle there is quite refreshing if you'd like. This is a selection of fruits from my area, so enjoy.
Very tasty.
What kind of juice is this?
That right there, I went with just a straight honey nectar. There's a large kind of open bell flower from the highlands of Copenhagen. Stores a surprising amount of nectar. That's a bit exaggerated. They don't really come that big, but the magic of the Tree Father for this particular blessing allows a little extra to come out. So, yeah, it's more like a good, refreshing mug in the morning,
It is quite tasty.
Try the ice berries there, the small blue ones. Those are a little bit tart, but delicious. I like to put them on my cricket cakes in the morning.
Ah, cricket cakes. Those are very good.
Well, most of my group agrees, but not everyone. But yes, I think cricket cakes are quite lovely.
Yes.
Speaking of your group,
Yes.
how many do you travel with?
For a long time, it was just myself and three others. Then we just picked up a new fella recently when we were kind of heading back into a rather dangerous area. We thought we could use a little extra muscle, so we picked up a fourth. For the most part, it's just me and three others. There's Hargus, Clan Hargus. He's the bard, a rapscallion, and quite the ladies' man, I might say. My good buddy Dacron. He's a human from Swanbow. He, quite a stalwart fellow, veteran of the Third Goblin Wars. Great man to have in a fight, great man to have at your side. He's taking a bit of a break right now. He needed just a bit of a rest after his recent sort of difficulties. And there's Branbrick, good man. He's bit of a roguish type, likes his business dealings, really focused on business and wheeling and dealing, trying to get that coin. Very goal focused, but does love a good prank now and then as well. And then who else do we have? Shaz is also a good fella, orc, half orc, I think, and really good man to have at your side. Oh man, he's got an arm on him, I tell you. He's off to speak with some of his sort of noble fellas, and we just picked up a new little, little, I say. That's the funny thing about hanging around tall folk is you get sort of size bias. So, like, I used to think, like, Rusty now, the ranger who just started traveling with us, is right on my size. I would have called her little before, but I've been hanging out with the big folk so long, now I think of my size as little and them as normal. So, yeah, just kind of funny.
Speaking of your size, if I may,
Hmm.
did we ever get what race you are? I don't think we ever spoke of that. We just called you a leprechaun.
Right. I haven't heard that one before, but forest gnome is the race that I'm generally known by.
That makes a bit more sense.
Right. The hat, the conical hat.
Yeah, we were thinking of another species from some place called Irelandia, something.
Okay, all right. I'll ask Cargus about that. He's real big into ancient lore and that sort of thing. If anyone would know about Irelandia and leprechauns, it would probably be Hargus.
All right, so going on to this,
Hmm.
you seem to have a lot of magical items. Can you walk us through some of the ones you have?
Oh, sure.
Obviously, you showed us the one. But I see you have plenty more.
Right. Well, Ring of Spells storing right here, pretty darn handy. I just loaded up with some basic curing spells, really nice to have in a pinch. Oh, there's a bag of holding. This little statue here with the snail turns into a giant riding snail that I can hop on and zip about. It's quite fast, ironically. This little, looks like a manta ray, right? Like a leathery piece of manta ray is actually a cap of water breathing. Lets me breathe underwater, which is quite handy since we're on a sea voyage at the moment. This tattered book right here looks a bit ratty, but it's actually quite handy if you page through it. If I'm looking at a magical item, it'll pull up kind of schematics for it in the pages, and it'll help me to identify its purpose, that sort of thing. This really cool metal wand here, you see, it looks kind of like a lightning bolt. Well, actually, it will shoot a lightning bolt out of it once a day, which is real fun. Love that. And, actually, if anything would prove this was a dream, it would be this right here. This is my bag of tricks, this little grey bag here. And actually, we'll see what happens. And I'll just throw them out here. 1, 2, 3, and 3. Oh, there you go. We got what do we got today? A weasel, a panther, and a boar. So, not a bad selection.
Oh, that's a good trick.
Yeah, they're quite handy. I mean, they're not like the strongest animals on their own, but they're very obedient, and you would be amazed at the number of real nasty ankle bites they get in any given combat. They're quite effective.
Yes, never underestimate wildlife, especially that summoned by a bag.
I certainly would not. Oh, actually, and here you go, right, cozied up under my vest here, this here is Bruce the Bat. I'm surprised he came with me. I thought, well, bizarre place you've got here.
Yes, it's probably because you came in through a very unusual circumstance that your consciousness and its consciousness also came along.
Well, I picked him up in a pretty bizarre place, so I suppose I shouldn't be surprised by anything Bruce does, really.
He is adorable, though.
Yeah, he is, and he loves crickets, so anyone who loves crickets can't be all bad, right? Doesn't matter that you came from a nasty shadow cave, does it? No, it does not.
Can you tell us a bit about the journey that you went on to retrieve him?
Well, I mean, we weren't there to get Bruce. We were traveling south of Hardale, which may or may not be familiar, human capital city in Amara. We were traveling south of Hardale. We had heard about some troubles in the small town of Morn Blossom. And as we were traveling around looking for this lost girl who had gone missing some days before, we came across this cave, rather ominous sort of thing. A lot of local legends surrounding it as a place of darkness and evil. So, hey, pretty good target for investigating, right? So,
Indeed.
yes. But yeah, we were traveling in a large flock. What is a swarm of bats? Swarm of bats. A flurry of bats came out and attacked us. I was sort of just trying to swat them away. I really hate killing animals if I can help it. So instead of killing it, I just sort of reached out and grabbed it and sort of tackled it to the ground, and eventually we became buddies. Yeah, and occasionally he'll manifest sort of a creepy sort of shadow power. Real scary, goes around biting folks something fierce, but for the most part I keep him calm and quiet in my vest here.
It seems like you've been on at least a few quests. Have you, by chance, tried a delicacy known as, I believe the common folk call it, a milkshake?
Milk? Are you thinking of butter? That's
No.
more of a churning process than a shaking. I mean, you
No.
can shake it for a clotted cream sort of thing.
No, this is a delicacy that it's used with frozen dairy. You could probably use goat milk, but I've been told it's not as good. You freeze some milk, then you add some, I believe it's sugar and flavoring.
Fruit and stuff.
Yes, and then you add some more milk and you stir it together until it's blended together.
Right. So in Copenhagen we call those iced and we call those blendeds. We do use goat milk because there's a lot of riding goats up in the mountains, and so a blended, we'll call it. It's sort of you drink it, with a spoon, like through a straw or with a spoon. and then an iced is more like a little more dense, depending on how you like it. But a blended is what we'd call that in Copenhagen.
Ooh.
But another, I mean, it's quite good. Like some of those berries there that I pulled out of the cornucopia, you could throw those in a blended. Some people like to use different herbals to go with it, but I prefer, the sweeter berry flavored ones.
Ah, I didn't get a chance to taste one when I was there. I must remember this.
Look it up, yeah.
You'll get your milkshake one day, Rue.
We're gonna have to make Rue host a cooking show soon.
He doesn't know about cooking.
I know how to cook. How dare you? I may not do it often, but that's because we have the kobolds that usually cook for us now.
As a plant-based sort of creature, are you big on consuming more traditional foods, or are you more of a good, clean water, or do you go for more of a Venus flytrap situation where you're catching meat and consuming it that way?
I must consume food like most other humanoids do to maintain my strength and good health. I like a little bit of meat, and I like a lot of vegetation.
Right.
May seem a bit weird for a plant to eat other plants, but
Well, I mean, you are a plant living in a cave, so, you're not getting much in the sunlight department, so, you've got some unique things going on, obviously.
yep.
Why do you think he was outside?
Oh,
Yeah, sometimes I go outside for the light.
gotcha.
Though it's not very light around the cave these days. It seems to have been dark for a while. Clouds just constantly around.
Yeah, that's not normal. I gotta check into that.
I think we have a nightmare storm incoming.
Could be. I'll check on the islands later. But anyway, back to our guest.
Sure, yeah, I was just listening in on a nightmare storm. That sounds just horrific.
Indeed it is.
That's why it's called a nightmare.
Gee whiz.
But you've been traveling through a dream before, haven't you?
Yes, actually, quite right. Oh boy, that was another odd thing. We were just traveling from Hardale to Valkstad, trying to retrieve a friend who'd been arrested, and we got just lost in a mist. And when we walked out of the mist, we walked into this tavern, and there was a creepy cloaked fella behind the tavern, and sent us through these like wandering sort of dreamscapes where we investigated our own past regrets and things like that. Yeah, it was rather unpleasant for the most part, but we each got sort of a token out of it when we were able to overcome the challenge presented by the individual dream. And that's where the sort of dream diary, I call it, comes from, the one that gives the helpful schematics and spell suggestions, things like that. But yeah, dreams, man, they're tricky business. That can be some nasty stuff, really. Poor Dacron. I mean, he had to fight his undead version of his ex-love, and Hargis relived some horrible battle where the prince he was serving at the time was like turned into some horrible necrotic creature that he had to kill again. I fought a house full of mimics. It was just all in all, just a. Sounds like a. You know what it sounded like? Sounded like a bloody nightmare storm is what it sounded like.
Maybe they're reaching into the other realms. That would not be good.
I'll take a look once we're down here.
Hmm.
So, can you tell us a bit more about your adventuring teammates, your party?
Sure. Dacron, good lad from Swanbow. He's a veteran from the most recent Goblin Wars. So is Bran as well. He was sort of a frontline scout, rogue kind of assassin type. Dacron's, trying to take care of his family and his stepdaughter back home. So he's out adventuring, trying to get money for them. Bran's always looking for the next business venture that he could make his fortune on. And then Hargis, Hargis is interesting because he plays it off like he's all flippant and like, oh, he's just out to sing a song, have a laugh, and flirt with the ladies. But I don't know. I think there's something else going on there. He occasionally will be dodgy around any sort of noble folk, like, anyone who looks like they might be in with the upper echelon of society. He'll sort of slide his way out of the room. like he doesn't want to be seen or something. So I don't know. He's got something going on, but he's a good lad, and yeah, good man to have at your side for sure.
He might not like being around me too much, then. It's not necessarily easy to tell, but I am nobility.
Hmm.
Both here and where I'm originally from, I'm nobility.
I mean, you're slumming with us in that cave, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, but the kobold servants came here and started working for you, and now they're working for me too. So it's like pretty obvious that we're some form of nobility. We don't pay them as much as they could possibly get if they worked for someone else, but they still love working for us. Though I think that's because you're dragons. Kobolds do love working for dragons.
Do you lot just live down in the cave all the time, or is this sort of a nightclub sort of situation? Or, I mean,
Cave is where we live, and where many of the magics that we do take place. We try to work with the world, but we also can't exactly do that out in the open. Not too well, at least.
all right,
Yes.
interesting. Well, any help you can send my way would be appreciated. So,
I could enchant you with a ward that will protect you from one nightmare.
hey, that could be the most important one. So, yeah, I'll take it. Absolutely. Don't look a gift dragon in the mouth. That's what old gnomish saying, you know.
And you were telling us a bit about your companions
Mm-hmm.
before I interrupted. Sorry about that, by the way.
No, that's fine. I might have gotten waylaid off Argus there. Those are my longest running companions, is Dacron, Bran, and Hargus. More recently, we picked up Shaz out towards Yord's Garden, if you're familiar. But yeah, he's a half-orcish nobility. Good man, good fighter, very powerful, very strong. He's actually off trying to arrange some of the more complicated noble sort of contacts that we have to deal with sometimes right now. And we just picked up a new guide for who knows the areas around the Ivory Islands, which is where we're actually traveling through to go see Beveroth that I mentioned before. She's the bronze dragon. So yeah, her name is Rusty, and she's a bit of a navigator. Apparently knows the islands well enough to get us around. So that's my most recent traveling companion is her. She's quite nice.
What was the race of this Rusty? I don't think you told us.
Rusty? Halfling.
So, not a gnome.
No, she's not a gnome, no. No. I mean, you know, if you're kind of inquiring, there's plenty of rock gnomes around. There's not many forest gnomes where I'm from. I haven't, I've only met 2 others so far. So, you know, still trying to figure out where the rest of them are at.
Are you a rare species?
Well, by all reports, we used to be quite abundant. You know, we had great large giant forests, lots of protected sanctuaries, that sort of thing. I guess it was, you know, just over 41 years or so ago when my parents were trying to get into Copenhagen that they were killed by their pursuers, which is why I was raised by the rock gnomes there. I call them my parents, you know, but technically step-parents raised me there in Copenhagen. But since that time, and since a bit before that, really, it's been about 100 years that the forest gnomes have kind of receded into total seclusion. Not many had heard about them or from them since about 100 years back.
They didn't exist for the past 100 years.
You know, that's the question I'm trying to find out, really. You know, every sanctuary I've been to so far, you know, typically you find a forest gnome sanctuary at the heart of a great forest, right? Each one has been kind of run down and abandoned looking. We just recently found one on the Ivory Islands that we'd been exploring. It had been sort of flooded out and everything. Actually, the sword here, I don't really go in for swords. I'm not really good at them, but the reason I carry this one is because it was in the tomb of one of the forest gnomes there. Actually, the spirit of the fellow who used to wield it occasionally speaks through it. So yeah, that's been a bit of a new one, but yeah, as far as what happened to the forest gnomes, where they went, or why they're no longer around, I don't know. That's the big mystery that really had me leave home and start kind of adventuring around. It's where I met all my party, really, Dacron and Bran and Hargis. I was moving south from Copenhagen to explore a place rumored to have once been inhabited by forest gnomes around Galen Falls there. And that's where we had our first sort of, I guess you'd say, adventure together.
And what adventure are you currently on?
Exploring the Ivory Islands. One of the forest gnome sanctuaries there was on one of the smaller islands, and that's where I met the second forest gnome I've ever met. An older forest gnome. She was, she is a druid, and had been living by herself in seclusion on this island for a little over 100 years, by herself, just sort of wondering why none of the forest gnomes were coming to this sanctuary anymore, where they used to kind of make a pilgrimage to visit this holy tree that the tree father had set up on the island. But yeah, she's just been there by herself for some time, and now we're exploring the rest of the islands, trying to find the quite literal last two pieces of the puzzle, which are these small pieces of stained glass puzzle pieces that, when assembled at the Holy Tree site, will hopefully activate the tree portal system, and maybe that'll give us some insight into, where the other forest gnomes have gone if we can explore the entire tree forest teleportation system. So,
Another question: is the tree father a tree? Is he a humanoid?
I haven't met him personally. It's more, gosh, how do you explain it? You hear that voice in the wind, in a half sleep under a tree, and you get that rumbling in the back of your mind, sort of a thing. So I don't know his exact physicality.
I usually shout to the kobolds to close the door when that happens.
Right? So yeah. So I don't know exactly. I feel like I'm just on the verge of being able to ask him sort of yes/no questions. So I might try some of that in the future here. See if we can suss out. I don't know. He might think that kind of thing was trivial, though. So I don't know if I want to necessarily, poke the bear in that in that sense.
He has been known to help mortals and give them answers to questions, but it's not easy to get him to do so from, well, I wouldn't say my own experience, but experiences that I have heard of.
I mean, that's quite heartening, actually. So he's definitely started to give some more active assistance to myself with, those blessings I mentioned.
Yes, he seems to have taken a liking to you.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. A couple clerics say that what I'm doing magically isn't what they do, so I'm not quite sure how that works, but I do believe he is giving me the ability to do the magic that I do. So,
And what about your parents? Do they do the same thing you do?
oh no, not at all. My parents. So technically, I know I introduced myself as Jasper Runewood. I'm pretty sure that's my last name because it was the runes inscribed on the people that I assume were my parents that when I was found. But I was raised by the Flint Sparks. Cornelius and Amethea are my father and mother, and they're Flint Sparks back in Copenhagen. They do artificing, very precise, arcane sigils worked onto mechanical devices for magical imbuement purposes. They're brilliant, just brilliant. I have never had the the head for that sort of thing. The number of runes that my father could just rattle off at the drop of a hat is just awe-inspiring. That man has a memory like you wouldn't believe. So no, I was never able to. I was a real dud at my classes. I just couldn't couldn't hold any of it in.
So you were raised by them, but they aren't your actual parents.
Well, I mean, that gets into a philosophical standpoint. They are my parents, but they are not my birth parents. So, my birth parents were two forest gnomes, and they were killed trying to get us to Copenhagen. So, but yes, they're my step parents or my adoptive parents, you would say, the Flint Sparks.
Well, they're still your parents.
That's what I say. Yes,
They raised you, and that's what counts.
exactly, and that's what I say as well. So,
It seems like they raised you well.
well, I appreciate that.
So, have you been able to acquire a lot of gold during your travels?
Well, actually, things were pretty slim pickings for a while. I mean, any amount of gold really was quite welcome. My parents are hard-working folk. They make the balancing gyroscopes for larger pieces of equipment, so, it helps keep up, as they say. But, we were comfortable, but we weren't wealthy by any means. And I tell you, some of the quests that the guild set us on raked in some pretty good bit of coin. But it wasn't until we went into this, I guess you'd call it a different plane of existence. It was populated by these weird cat-bodied, like, I guess it was like a cat version of a centaur. It was a bizarre thing. Running about these plains, and there was a giant pyramid that we had to go into to try and get out of the place. There was a great large pile of gold down there that we managed to just shovel into bags as we were escaping through the portal at the base of it. And I mean, for me, it's quite a huge amount. A bit over 4,000 gold at this point, which for me is quite the fortune. I guess for some it might not be so much, but
These cat centaurs, could they have been sphinxes?
correct me if I'm wrong, but a sphinx that has like a humanoid upper bit, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like more like straight human, right? These were like cat people upper torso, but also lion sort of body back bit. So it was like cat on cat, sort of. But humanoid cat, I don't know. They were odd. They were quite odd.
Oh, cats in general are odd. Trust me, I know.
Yes, quite right.
I have a question
Mm.
that I've been asking people you interviewed. What is the most imaginative insult you can come up with?
I mean, suppose it would depend on the individual, right? You'd want to tailor it to them.
Yes, but I'm thinking of like a generalized insult. Just something that can be used against most people.
How about something like cricket shite for brains or something?
Hmm.
For the insults, I usually go for Hargis. He's quite the silver tongue on him. Bran loves a good bit of insulting as well. I don't really go in for it as much as those two. They're the masters of it, I'd say.
Ah, understandable. I'm just looking for more things to use if I ever have to use vicious mockery again.
Oh, right. Yeah, Hargis has told me about that one. Sounds quite handy. Are you a bit of a bard yourself?
Yes, before I ascended, I was a full-on bard.
Ah.
Still am.
Is that strange metal horn thing, is that an instrument that you play?
Ah, my saxophone. It's actually made of bone. I've polished it recently to where it shines.
Saxophone.
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 I don't know what phone stands for, but maybe it's some way of saying horn.
I think it's supposed to be saxophone. It makes more sense.
Maybe the person who gave it to you misspoke when they handed it to you? They meant to say saxophone?
Well, I was told they're normally made of brass, so I don't know if it would be called a saxophone normally.
Oh, right, that wouldn't make any sense then. Huh,
A saxobrass.
saxobrass. That checks out.
Never thought of it like that. Maybe they did just misspeak. It was made specifically for me, so maybe they gave it a name, and maybe they said saxophone. I'll have to think of that.
These little mysteries are why we do it, right?
Yes. One more question.
Of course.
If you were a god, what would you do in your world?
Oh, bloody hell. Find a way to pass the responsibility on to somebody else, right? I mean, gee whiz, on earth would want to be a god?
Earth?
Yeah, the ground,
Oh,
the earth.
oh, okay.
Yeah. Who standing upon the ground would want to be a god? It's like nobody, right? Because everyone stands on the ground.
Sure, there's some people who would.
Sorry. It's one of my old gnomish sayings that it trips up some of the other party members as well when I try and bestow my little bits of wisdom on them.
Understood.
Yes, you see, you have to explain those figurative speeches to Ashura.
Excuse you.
Yes, you're one to talk, Ephraim.
What do you mean?
Did you finally read that book we got you?
The speeches of figures.
I can see by the bookmark you're only 5 pages in.
I read it every time I go to bed, but I've only gone to bed once in the past 2 years.
Oh, that's an extended schedule.
I'm going to need to knock this boy out eventually. But anyway, back to you. I wanted to ask, on your many journeys, to my knowledge, you've been journeying for quite a while now. Have you come across or made any enemies?
Oh boy.
Enemies that have been with you for a long while?
A nemesis, if you will. A
Yes.
person who I set my being against, and who I wish utter destruction upon.
Mhm.
Yes. There's one in particular. I suppose it's safe to mention it here. I've been told his name is Barbarous. Works in the underbelly of Valkstad. They've got sort of a seedy underbelly, kind of away from the official eyes of the City Watch. And he, for all intents and purposes, runs a slaver's ring down there, and he's got gnomes in it, and I will find a way to destroy him in the near future. I just need to make sure I have a good line on all of his guards and that sort of thing. It seems like he might be some sort of demon as well. Not sure exactly what's going on there. Kind of incomplete data on him. Yeah, looking to destroy him utterly, though. As I would any slaver, but he's got gnomes, so that really elevates him to the top of the list.
Understandable. I believe I have 2 more questions for you.
Oh,
Hold on, you said one question a minute ago.
Well, yes, but I've thought of 2.
Funny thing about questions.
They lead to more questions, or you get more questions as you think. What would you say is the best type of cheese? I haven't had cheese much, and I am trying to figure out what type is the best.
Well, I grew up with goats. We got a lot of mountain goats, and so most of the cheeses up there are mountain goat milk based. There's an aged one. It's called a Grimsha. It's an aged goat cheese. It's a little bit harder and more crumbly than others. I like to slice it real thin and have it with a strong cup of tea.
That sounds quite pleasant.
Yeah, if you like a good sharp sort of taste to it, it really helps balance out. Yeah, a good cup of tea for sure.
Yes. And my final question. Given 8 hours by yourself in town before your party leaves the city to go back on the road, what do you see yourself wanting to do the most? And how do you spend that time?
There aren't a lot of gnomish inns where I've been in the bigger folks' cities. And a lot of the big folk taverns and inns tend to be a little, they try, but they're not as hospitable as a gnomish pub could be. So I don't tend to go in for them for the most part. I guess I'd probably try and find a grove dedicated to the Tree Father, maybe head out of town. I mean, if there's a magic shop, I'll go shop a magic shop for sure. I'm always interested in finding another fun little magic item here and there. I guess if I'm in a big city and I have to spend 8 hours, find someone who can help out with some magic items. Maybe someone who could give me some tips on crafting my own. I just started getting into crafting magical items, which has been quite fun, quite rewarding. Yeah, so that's about it, I'd say.
Oh crap.
What?
I missed Balcracidon's 4000th birthday.
Oh, 4,000. He's 4,000. Man, he looks good. Very, very robust.
I have one final question for you.
Of course.
Can you highlight for us your overall goal of your adventure? Why are you doing it, and what do you hope to succeed?
Of course, absolutely. My primary overall goal is to find the forest gnomes, hopefully alive. I don't know if they're all in captivity somewhere. I don't know if they've been shunted off into another plane of existence like the couple we've encountered in various parts of the world. Whatever the case, worst case scenario, I suppose they've all been killed by the same people who killed my parents, but I'm hoping that's not the case. But yeah, find them, either free them or bring them back to their home here in Amara, or I suppose if worse comes to worse and it's only revenge to kill the one who led to the destruction of my people. But I'm hoping the Tree Father's got a better end in sight than just that, so we'll see how it goes.
Indeed. Now, let's see what we can do to get you back to your own realm.
Much appreciated, much appreciated. Rue, was it?
Yes.
Could I have that 4-leaf clover?
Sure.
I just feel like it would look good on the lapel of my vest right here, and I'll just tuck it in right there.
Somehow I feel like you're propagating a stereotype, but I'm not sure which one.
Maybe I'm beginning a stereotype.
Me. But I hope we get to speak with you again, and until then, have a good awakening.
Free Father bless you.